Welcome to the Dark Side of Soul podcast. This is Joe.
This is Sean.
I was doing the intro sounding like King Sejong from the Soul podcast.
You got to put the effects in your voice.
The effects.
From that, yeah. Except instead of the effects that you do on this one.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited. We're feeling really great. We had a very fun time recently over at Not Comic Con at the Dice Latte. The Dice Latte, not the Dice Lotte. That's a different thing.
Yeah. That's a burger joint.
Dice Latte. Very happy. I like that place. Even though it's a little far for me to go, but I will try to make my way down there. They're near Ppoong-Ppoong-i Station in northeastern Seoul. It's a board game cafe. It's a comic book shop. It's also they have good food. I will.
Yes.
Honestly, some of the better sandwiches I've had in Seoul. Now, granted, that's not a high bar to pass, but really good for 5,001. A really good croissant sandwich that's not overladen in sweet sauces and mayonnaise.
Right. What I really liked
real cheese.
Yeah. What I like about the food there is that it just tastes like something you'd make at home. It has a very homemade kind of feel to it.
Yeah. You get a little like bacon quesadillas.
Right.
You get those Cajun style French fries, and they have some beer on tap, great coffee, milkshakes. And what I see people doing is they grab some food and some drinks, break out one of those board games. I've never seen so many board games in one place. Anything you can think of. They've made a board game for it, and Joey has it there. They even have a Bob Ross board game. The Painter, Bob Ross. They even have one of Trogdor, the Burninator from Homestar Runner. So many Star Wars games. And
it will be announcing something in a few weeks, something else we're going to do with Joey Kroner at the Dice Latte in Dark Side of Soul.
Yeah, we had such a good experience there. We're thinking of doing some more events there.
Right. So we're going to chat more, but we'll announce that in a little while. That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to those events. Yeah,
we're going to do some special events. This is the response we had for the initial comic has been great. Foreigner and Korean has been great. I love it because in this case, I'm kind of in the background. I like being the producer on this, and I like Sean being the star.
I don't want to be a star. I want the book to be the star.
Doing all the autographs, and I love it that people want their pictures taken with Sean.
Watching me squirm. I'm like, all right.
I love it. I love watching them squirm. Yeah,
right. I hate it, but I'm fine. Like, it's completely fine. But I love the idea that people are interested and excited in the book.
They like the comic.
Yeah. People came in specifically for the comic.
Yeah, but what I liked is I like the people who came in and saw it, flipped through it, and will go, "Ooh, I want this." I like that.
That's right.
That was it.
Right,
especially Koreans that were in the shop. Really, I'm always nervous about that because I feel like, what are you going to think? Are we worthy?
On Sunday night, one guy, he picked it up and he looked through it and he said he'll get it. And he asked me to sign it. So I signed it. Then he was kind of in the background talking to someone else, spoke really good English, and I could hear him. I was nearby. I was within earshot. And he's like, this is more like Western style folk tales. And I just kind of leaned in. I said, well, no, actually, they're just adaptations of folk tales directly from Korean tradition. And I said, I asked him, have you studied folklore? He's like, no, not really. And my mind was like, how the hell do you know that's not from Korean tradition, you know?
Yeah.
So, but he still bought a book, so that's fine. And
that's fine.
He likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all good.
It's all good.
So
anyway, they're delicious. I was rereading it. I just love looking at the artwork. I keep going through and I'm finding so many details every time I go through it. Yeah. Anyway, also remind you that we are also running the Dark Side of Soul Ghost Walk. You can book a tour at darksideofsoul.com. fun time. If you want to get the comic book, you can also go on our website, darksideofsoul.com. I have links to it there. We have a store. You can purchase a digital copy or a print copy, plus shipping. We're doing fairly well. We also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/darksideofsoul, where we run regular watch parties, and it's a fun community. Join our community. And also contact us with, Sean's also working on a new book about supernatural experiences in Korea. If you've had any supernatural experiences inside Korea, share them with Sean.
Yeah, send it through. Just send us a message on Facebook saying, I got something I'd like to share. And then one of us will reply. Then it will get to me either way.
Or Minji.
Then I'll ask
Minji
for
the
your
ghost might reply. Yeah.
And then I'll get your email and then speak to you that way.
All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about natural disasters. We're at the time of recording. I think we're on the third week of straight rain.
I think in different places around the country, it's day 45.
Oh, wow.
If you're talking it hasn't been raining for 45 days here where I live up in the north, around Paju, but it's been raining 45 days somewhere on the peninsula and heavily. Yeah. I think it's 45 or 46 days now. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the monsoon season, or in Korean we call it Jangma. It's this has been I read that this has been the heaviest Jangma in 7 years. I really don't think we've had a big one since 2011, but we'll see.
That was a disastrous year.
Yeah.
We'll chat a bit about that.
Yeah, we are. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about some particular natural disasters. Sean, do you want to start? Or you want me to start about mine?
Well, I think I'd like to just mention something to bring everything back to tradition and folklore, which is always what I like to do.
Yeah, you're kind of like a one-note person.
I'm the one-trick pony. I'm a Paul Simon album.
It's like between you and folklore and me talking about food all the time.
I keep saying let's do a folklore of food.
Definitely I think we should pull in Jennifer Flynn for that one. That would be a good one.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I don't know Jennifer, but it sounds good. But yeah, through tradition, of course, Koreans have been dealing with monsoons for just about as long as they've been recording their history. And of course that led its way, permeated into the culture, and the culture responded through creating rituals and whatnot. So one of the main rituals that you can still see remnants of, again, in rural areas. I often say this, you can see a lot of these things, these rituals and these beliefs, part of rural traditions, is called the ritual itself, or the idea itself is called the sugumegi. And su is water. If you look at the Chinese character, su, gu, and gu is mouth. You look at the character. It's that square. It's a really easy hanja to read. It's the square.
Sugumegi. Megi?
It's mek. It's mek-i, so megi. Yeah, sugumegi.
Oh, mek-i.
It's the spelling is mek. Yeah, but megi. Yeah, so
it's a
megi.
McDonald's.
So you know right. So you know when if a word ends, or a section of a word ends with a consonant and the next one is a vowel, the consonant sound carries. So it's megi, right?
Which is why I will never win a Korean spelling bee. I get that confused all the time.
I get a lot of the vowels confused too. If I hear a new word, it's like, which A is that? Is it?
Oh, that too.
Yeah.
That too.
So, anyway.
When my wife, I'm trying to write something and my wife's dictating to me and I'm like, is it or eh? She goes, it's eh. I'm like, okay, that didn't help. That didn't help.
Right. So, but this is A-I. So in this case, it's A-I. So you know the spelling. So the sugumegi, and this was it's part of the idea of village gods and the worship of village gods and things like that. the idea of the sugumegi is to prevent flooding. So it can kind of be seen as a water course. So sugu can be translated as like water course or a waterway, and it relates to the idea of a village god. So a deity that prevents flooding of a village. So
how do you appease that deity?
What's that?
How do you appease it, the sugumegi?
Usually through dance.
Dance? Someone ain't been dancing this year.
Yeah, the nongak. The nongak is the music troops, the farmers' music troops.
Yeah, nongak.
And that's a massive part of Korean lore. I think that's another future episode we could do, talking about just the kind of the things that they believed that the village, the agricultural farmer dance groups, the troops, and so the idea is to protect their village from flooding through these performances, and there could be other ways as well. Depending again,
can we just get BTS? We should get BTS on the scene for that one. We need some serious dancing for this.
No, it's all right. It's okay.
Hey, they're good dancers.
I've never seen them dance. You could.
They're good.
Can we get back to what? So just lost over BTS fan listeners. So yeah, the sugumegi is designed to appease a deity that can help to prevent floods, to hold back the waterways, the water courses that could make their way into villages. So this is all kind of related to the Ppoong-Ppoong-i, the geomancy, which is somewhat related to in Korean Ppoong-Ppoong-i, but it's somewhat related and kind of comes from the Chinese feng shui. But the Korean Ppoong-Ppoong-i is unique as well. And we talked about it in a couple of other episodes.
We touched on it. I'd like to do a whole show about it maybe sometime.
Yeah, maybe in the future. Yeah. So, the ritual is designed all around that. There are especially places where there was beliefs where geometric energy was weak, and so they kind of supplement the weak energy with the rituals related to the sugumegi.
Okay.
Jangsung is a way to do this. Now, the Jangsung are the totems, and they're actually on the cover of the Dark Side of Seoul comic book.
Yep, they are.
The Jangsung, so they can be seen all around. And there are also different flood prevention rituals, specifically like the Susalmagi, and they're often held around coastal regions, especially where flooding could come from the ocean, and or places that are near rivers that are prone to damage and prone to flooding like that. So these are old folkloric responses to the floods that Koreans, or the potential for floods that Koreans have been experiencing for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm. That sounds ancient.
So, yeah. Well, yeah. Korea's old. So all these principles and whatnot that surround these ideas of preventing floods are very, very old. And they've been dealing with it for a long time. And this
dealing
year
with floods. That's how we got pharaohs.
There you go. That's right.
Yeah.
So that's some folkloric idea around floods and how Koreans would prevent floods.
Okay.
So how about you? So what about something a little bit more modern then? Because we've both been living in Korea for quite some time. This is my 20th monsoon season. This is your 15th monsoon season.
16th.
So
17th maybe.
17th.
16th. Yeah.
What kind of floods and whatnot have you experienced? Because I guess
this is funny because my first few years in Korea, Jangma, the monsoon season, just seemed pretty steady, predictable. And then I think in the past few years we haven't really had much
It's been dry. We've had droughts, which is another natural disaster we've been
Yeah,
dealing with.
we haven't had it. That's why I've been feeling like this year is kind of balancing all the previous years. Or I'm also playing with the idea, like, because of coronavirus, the Earth is coming back. Everyone's staying home, and the Earth is like, okay, we're going back to normal.
Right.
Everyone's complaining about the rain. Of course, I mean, the rain is awful. I mean, people have died. But it also just feels like the balance is coming back. Every year, every time there's rains, people keep showing. I think it's Ppoong-Ppoong-i Bridge.
Mm.
The bottom tier is flooded, and like that happens every year. Why is everyone always like so shocked by that? You build a bridge that is just less than a meter above the water, it's going to flood.
Right. For anyone who doesn't know, that's one of the bridges that crosses the Han River in Seoul.
It's one of the Han River. It's the one where all the rainbow fountains come off of, and it's two layered. It's double-deckered bridge. Mm-mm. And the bottom layer floods every year. It's predictable.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the Sebetsong, that's the islands. The artificial islands with it looks like a space lab that's on the Han River that no one goes to because even taxi drivers don't even know where it is.
Right. Yeah.
Those always get flooded. Mm. They're flooded now. And a lot of this comes from our former mayor, Oh Se-hoon, who resigning in disgrace. Have we had a good mayor, a mayor that has left on good terms? Left on good terms. Umyeonsan left on good terms. Umyeonsan left on good terms, but then he became president, and everyone instantly hated him.
Well, he entered the presidency on bad terms. He must be involved in a. But anyway, that's different.
Yeah. But Oh Se-hoon was a guy. Well, because I think his predecessor, Umyeonsan, who was a former executive for Hyundai Construction, was able to push through all these construction projects like the Cheonggyechon Stream while he was mayor and cemented his legacy with that. And so Oh Se-hoon wanted his own legacy, so he started making these boondoggle building projects, including those Sebetsong Islands.
Yeah, right.
Which still, I mean, they were in a quick scene on Avengers: Age of Ultron. There was a quick scene that took place on them that was supposed to be a lab that everyone forgot. But he's also built these streets, Renaissance Street and Design Street, which I've never been to those, but he used granite sidewalks, which they don't drain properly.
Right.
And that's a big deal in Seoul. If you ever watch Parasite, which Sean still hasn't, I'm sure.
No comment.
Big scene involves the flooding that we're dealing with now. So anyway, I'm giving a background because I think Oh Se-hoon was mayor during that time. Yeah, he was. And we had a really strong Jangma that year. And we had some really heavy rains for 3 days in July, on the 25th through 28th, 3 or 4 days. And
in 2011.
2011.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Thanks. If I didn't mention that, sorry. Yeah, 2011.
I think you did. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. We had a lot of issues. In that sense, the people now say it was a stagnant pressure system. We had low pressure coming in from southwest, from the southwest, from Southeast Asia, and we had this, northern, I will say the Russian front, high pressure front, and they're all stationary. They all met on the Korean peninsula and just stayed there. So it just dumped all this rain. We still had a few structural issues. If people have been in Seoul, especially back in the day, remember there's a certain smell, and it's because our sewers are kind of shallow. They've been fixing them. I've been noticing the smell's been going away gradually. But yeah, the rain gutters were 40 centimeters instead of 1 meter. That's quite a difference. So anyway, all of this converged in this perfect storm. And on July 27th, there was that morning there was a series of landslides on Umyeonsan, which is a mountain that borders the southern end of Seoul. Rain was coming down at 110 millimeters per hour. That's a lot of rain. Some of our subway stations were flooded. Oryudong and Solong Station. The Gwangamun and Cheonggyecheon were flooded. And yes, also around Gangnam. Gangnam was just pretty much underwater, kind of like how it is now. Gangnam's pretty much underwater right now. Olympic Highway is pretty much. Olympic Parkway is underwater at sections.
Are they still underwater as of recording?
I do not know. I got some warnings that they might be underwater.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I live so far away from any of that I don't get any warnings.
I'm avoiding it. When we were driving back from the comic book thing on Sunday, one of the streets that my GPS was taking me to was closed because of flooding. Yeah. And so Umyeonsan, the mountain on the southern end, had a series of landslides. And this is a big thing for me because I was in it. And that was so my story was that I was co-host of the morning program on EBS FM radio called Morning Special, and I had to wake up early in the morning, get a taxi at 5 a.m, and get all out to Umyeongdong, and for a little bit of a people who know the Seoul a bit, where this is located, because people don't really go to this area. It's right near the Yangjae Costco. I think most people know where the Yangjae Costco is. It's a little bit northwest of the Yangjae Costco, within walking distance. So we would show up early in the morning, and I think our show started at 7 o'clock. Yeah. And it was me and my co-host, and we had a news guy, Peter Bent, and Nemo Kim was my co-host. And it's a funny show. It's a weird show because it's a morning program. It's a morning drive time show, but it's kind of meant to teach English, but done in a news and features format. And so we're talking about the rain. It was a really rainy day, and while we're talking, we just felt the building rumble. And we thought it was just really loud thunder that had just made its way into the studio. And we go, "Whoa, did you feel that?" And you're like, "Wow, the thunder's really bad here. So everyone be careful today." And we continue talking, and then we go off into a song break. And right when we went into the song break, the producers came into the studio and said, "We've been hit by a landslide. We need to evacuate."
Jesus.
Yeah. So what we did was we did the song, and we cut in the middle of the song, and we explained that what had happened to the station, and that we were going to take the show off the air, and we're just going to play like music. We're going to automate the broadcast. And so we did that, and we got our stuff and we left the studio, opened the studio door, and the hallway was caked in 0.5 meter of mud.
Well,
the entire hallways up to the tops of your knees. We had to trek through to get out of the building. And I have videos. I took some video of this. I left the building with the team, and I think I have some pictures, some videos of us leaving the building. Go out to the parking lot, and there are these giant boulders in the middle of the parking lot, and trees. Really scary. Cars were smashed. I mean, like Godzilla smashed. Mm. And we're walking, and we're trying to figure out, okay, we're just going to have to try to get home. We go to get home, and every way out of the neighborhood is blocked with water. And I'm not just talking, I tried to wade out, and it was like fast flowing rapids. People were like slipping and falling trying to cross, and there were cars floating down the street.
Mm-hmm. Run away.
That's what it's like.
Run away.
We're not leaving for a long time. Thankfully, one of the members of the crew had an apartment in the neighborhood, so we took refuge in there, took showers, and just waited the whole thing through. The power was out throughout the neighborhood. That happened for like days. So we got one of the landslides. There were lots of landslides, and I learned my new Korean word of the day was sansete. Landslide.
Sansete. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It really hit hard all over. Mostly now, a lot of the videos you see, and I'm linking to a lot of videos in our show notes. There's the videos I shot. There's the famous videos that you see of the mud just coming in and crashing down over a highway and into apartment buildings. That's on the northern side, and on the northern side of Umyeonsan. Now, again, get out your maps. I'll give you time. Get out your map if you want to know kind of where this is. You want to look for Sadang Station. And then on the east side, look for Yangjae Station, and there's a road that goes in between the two, and that's kind of where it all took place. Is this road between Sadang Station and Yangjae Station? That's around actually where the Arirang studios are, but Arirang wasn't hit. So a lot of the bad damage happened up there, and you can actually still see the scars on the mountains. And it's like they look like individual streams going down the mountains. It's not like one. It's not like one part of the mountains is gone. It's just all these like wide streams, gutters on the mountain it created. Yeah. We'll go through, and people were asking like what was the cause of this. A lot of people assumed it was development, possibly. But that one mountain doesn't have much development on it. They intentionally left it as a nature preserve. There's a temple on the mountain, but the thing is, a lot of the mountains in Korea, when you go 1 meter deep, it is pretty much pure granite. I want to double check to make sure I'm correct when I say that.
The Korean mountains?
Yeah, you can help me with that.
Yeah, Korean mountains are predominantly granite. Yeah,
and it's impermeable. It's not like what's the word I'm looking for? Pyroclastic rock, which is porous.
Right.
That'll go through.
Come on, if you come on Seoul hike, I can point all that out to everyone.
Yes, on a safe hike that does not involve landslides. But yeah, so
not right now.
So when it's raining, you got this, and there was I think it was Discovery Channel program. I actually, I think I sold I don't know. They bought my video. I think Washington Post used my videos too. They did a show called like World's Greatest Disasters or something like that. Most dangerous planet. I think that was called. And they did an episode about the Seoul landslide. And they did some graphics that showed how it worked. And so the rain soaks in, and it creates this liquid barrier between the dirt and sand and the granite, and it basically creates a giant water slide for the trees.
Yeah, you can see all through different parts of most of the mountains in Korea that are frequented by hikers, but just north of Seoul, if you go to Ppoong-Ppoong-i National Park, especially there in the southern trails and the southwestern trails, some of those trails are just completely eroded, and you can see where the granite, and when you're walking along the trail, you're in a kind of a crevice, almost like a foxhole. Not a foxhole, like a ditch, like the war thing. I'm thinking of like World War I,
like a trench.
Like a trench. That's the word I'm looking for. And on either side, it's the upper part of the granite. But where the trail was established, it was on the softer ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, there's been literally millions of people walking over that since it became a national park. And then you go, fewer and fewer as you go farther back in time. A lot of temples have been there since at least the 16th, 17th, or the 17th, 18th centuries.
Yeah.
And they've just made this trench. So whenever there's any little bit of rain, just water and mud and any smaller pieces of rock will start pouring down through those trails.
And that's what they said might have been one of the causes. There are, even though there's no building there, they said it was private, a lot of private property there, private forestries there. And they created a bunch of trails, and they said that might have created a lot of the grooves that caused the landslide.
Right.
That's one of the cases. Right. But it wasn't like a lot of people were assuming at the beginning is because of apartment construction. That wasn't it.
No, that's unlikely.
Yeah.
A lot of, I remember reading that the people were talking about what the reasons for it. It was like the main reason for it was the rain. Yeah. And the question should be, why was the ground so easily disrupted? That's how the question should be phrased. Why was the integrity of the soil so disrupted or loose, and then allowed the landslide to happen? But yeah,
there are now reinforcements, in case you want to know. You can actually go up and see the trail going up. There's a blog post I have linked that shows the after effects a few years later, in 2013, how it turned out.
Yeah.
I'm looking through stuff that I might have skipped. So anyway, about EBS, there's also a video I linked about how EBS recovered, and it brought back a lot of memories, a little bit of PTSD. I'd say after this, I get a little jittery when there's a lot of rain if I'm near a mountain. It's one of those things. It was really scary.
Yeah.
They spent all this time. The police, the military were called in, and they start cleaning out the studio. And you will see exactly what I'm saying, how deep that mud was inside the building.
Right.
One of the famous TV shows, Ppoong-Ppoong-i, which is Korea's version of Barney the dinosaur, you could say.
Oh, Ppoong-Ppoong-i, yeah.
Yeah, that studio was obliterated. It looked like Dagobah.
Right. There's our Star Wars reference for the class.
Yeah, or the set of Lord of the Rings. It was just forest. It was obliterated forest inside that studio. And
unfortunately, when it happened, because that studio, when that show, the show may still be on air, but
it is,
that studio is often full of little kids.
Yeah, thankfully they weren't filming at that time.
Yeah.
It was just the morning show and a few workers coming in. Thankfully, there weren't that many people. The parking lot wasn't that full at that time. They were so lucky on so many ways. We were. Other people weren't. One person killed was the wife of an executive of Shinsegae. Because that is one of the areas that was hit. The northern side of Umyeonsan was Seochogu. That's in Bangbei. Though that's pretty rich areas. That's Western Gangnam.
That's right.
I used to teach in that area. That is a fairly wealthy area.
Yeah, the big art art hall is there.
Yeah,
performance hall.
That was it. Yeah. So we still had to go back on the air eventually, and I think it was a couple of days. And they brought us back in, and they were able to get one tiny little booth set up. It's where we usually did our pre-recorded shows. They set up generators outside the building and snaked it through giant cables through the windows.
Did a MacGyver job.
Yeah, it was very MacGyver. It really was. It was like a snorkel going into the building. They were able to get one control room and one recording booth up and running. They weren't able to get all the mud out of the hallway, but they were able to channel through like a little path that we could barely go through. We had to take off our shoes when going inside. It was just, and there was cardboard laid down everywhere inside every part. We all brought different pairs of shoes and socks every day because everything would get muddied. And we had all this bottled water. We had zero air conditioning, even though we're in August at this point. And we're stuck in this hermetically sealed room doing live shows for an hour at a time. So every time we went to a song break, they would open up the door to the control room to get us some air. It was really rough recording during that time. We lived through a lot. And also we had no computers. So that was how we did all our communications with the control room during the show. And that's how we communicated. A lot of our shows were guests calling in, us reading what the message board said. So we had to come up with content on the fly, improvise everything. Everything was done on paper scripts. We would get paper emails. It was such a challenge to come up with stuff to talk about when we didn't have feedback from the audience. We didn't realize how much of our show was feedback from our audience. Okay, and here I'm just complaining about. There were much bigger things to complain about than what our little inconveniences, but this was just our experience as broadcasters doing this. The generators were there for, if I remember correctly, they were there for at least 2 months. I finished doing the show at the end of September. And so they were still there when I left. Now, by then, we were able to clean out a lot of the mud, open up the main studio, get air conditioning again. The carpets were permanently stained. I think they eventually got rid of the carpets and repainted the whole building. For days, and I have a video of this, there was a continuous waterfall down one of the flights of stairs. Just all these memories of that time. And so I brought it up. I did post something on my personal Facebook wall, and other people that were working at EBS at the time were talking about their memories, how they remembered it. How it was rough. It was a really rough time.
We were pretty lucky at that. I was living in Ilsan at that time. And we had the rain, but there was nothing really bad that happened. The Han River, which is part of the Han River, which is near Ilsan, is quite far from where anyone lives. So I think it did flood a bit, but most of the Han River around that area has all the military installments there. So,
and that was another thing people were worried about, was that mountain used to have a lot of landmines. And
that's right.
Through the 80s and 90s, they were trying to clear them all out, but there were still 10 unaccounted for. So people were worried that one of the landmines might go through, or some speculate that one of the landmines was set off, and that's what caused the landslides. But there's no evidence for that.
An explosion probably would. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know how a loud explosion of a landmine is, but anyway.
Well, it was a thunder. It was just a very. It's weird. Now I know what it's like to be in the middle of something like this. It was just rumble, and it felt like it felt kind of like how an earthquake feels. An earthquake doesn't feel like, to me, earthquake doesn't feel like how it's shown in the movies, where it's shaking like you're on the bridge of the Enterprise. If it's this weird rumble. And you feel something uneasy. I feel kind of queasy whenever I feel an earthquake. I haven't felt a serious earthquake though. I've always felt just like a vibration, like when you're letting sand settle. You're letting sand settle. Just that little vibration.
Yeah, I felt 3 avalanches, all 3 of them in the Himalaya, and I was quite far away, so I wasn't in any danger, but all 3 of them started with a big crack where the ice and the snow was letting go from the face of the mountains. And the really big one I felt was when I was passing through the Annapurnas, and the avalanche came down the northern side of Annapurna 1, and it just shook the mountains all around. We could hear this rumbling. Another time I was that same trip, me and my good friend Dome, who's from the area, sorry, from the southern part of the Solu-Khumbu, from the Solu region near Everest. We were going up Gangapurna, one of the mountains, and we were creating avalanches when we were trekking up through.
Oh my!
And we were slipping, and then we were like, okay, we're gonna cause something, and we're both gonna die on Gangapurna. So let's just make our way back down.
Yeah.
And so we had to be careful. But those 3 large avalanches, yeah, they were just the power was immense.
Go back and have that Tibetan makgeolli.
The Chang.
Is that what it's called?
This is what the Sherpas call it up in the Sherpa in the Nepal, Himalaya, and
I remember
I think in Tibet it's called Chang.
That was from that radio show. We had a weekly guest who was a travel writer, and after my time on that show, he invited me out to this Tibetan restaurant and he introduced it to me. This Tibetan makgeolli.
That's probably Chang. I would guess. There's also Rakshi. Also, it's more like fun in Nepal as well. It's more like a soju, but served hot. It's really, really good.
Ooh.
Anyway, so I felt like the rumbling of the mountains like that. Yeah, it's frightening really, because it really gives you the sense of how small you are. And the irony for me was that's one of the main reasons I love going into the mountains anyway. They're humbling.
Yeah.
They force you, or they should force you to realize how small you are.
Yeah.
And if they don't do that, then you have that conquer mindset and always going to the summit of the mountains and you conquer the mountain, that kind of, which I think is a very childish point of view. The mountains
but it's fun drinking from the top of the mountain.
Very dangerous too. I never do it. I do know people who have come down the mountains drunk and they've broken their legs.
Yeah, and it's now illegal.
It's now finally illegal. So the ironic thing was I go to the mountains to feel small, but when you're near them, you're near these disasters, that sense of smallness is terrifying. Yeah. Instead of humbling. Yeah. So there was a time when I was down, it was summer 2000, I want to say around 2009 or 2010. Mm-hmm. And I went down to Jirisan for the weekend. I went down
mountain to the south of Korea, in southern Korea.
Korea's first national park. It's a largest mountain on the mainland of South Korea. And the tallest, of course, is Hallasan on Jeju-do. But I went down there with a friend of mine, Tim, and we left on a Saturday, like a late Saturday morning. Yeah. And we took the slow train down, and we sat in the booze car the whole time, drinking beer, because we knew we were arriving late in the evening. We wouldn't make it to the mountain itself. So we would arrive and then just go get a hotel and a restaurant and then wake up early the next day and start hiking. Just do a day hike.
Yeah, it's not like hungover hiking. Yeah.
That's better than drunk hiking.
Yeah, okay.
So we did. We woke up the next morning early, made our way up Nogodan in the southwestern part of Jirisan National Park, mm-hmm. and came down Ppoong-Ppoong-i, in the beautiful valleys in the southern part of the park and southwest part of the park. And it started to pour when we were going across the top, the ridge line, the Baekdudaegan, the spine of the Korean peninsula. And we turned and made our way down the trail, down Ppoong-Ppoong-i, and it started to rain so heavily that we could actually see the water rising in the river. Wow. We were observing it getting deeper through the rainfall. And that's an example of what I mean when that point of feeling small is terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Because if there was any flash flood that came through there, we would have been gone. Yeah. So we made our way as quickly as we could down through the trail, also avoiding slipping and being safe. and we did make our way down. And so we're safely on the road, and we're walking down to the home of an old man that lived up there named Ham Tae-shik. Ham Tae-shik founded Korea's first mountain shelter.
You talked about him before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on the show.
But possibly, or maybe just with you one time. Kind of an old mentor of mine. He was very monumental in convincing Ppoong-Ppoong-i to establish the National Park Service. He and 3 of his buddies. None of them are known to anyone. They're not well known. Ppoong-Ppoong-i gets all of the credit for coming up with the national park idea, just like he gets credit for reforestation of Korea, but it wasn't him. There was a scientist before him that was really involved in all that. He just kind of pushed the people to do it. Ppoong-Ppoong-i did, but it wasn't his idea. Just like the national parks weren't his idea. And so we went down and we met Ham Tae-shik. So came quite close with him the last few years of his life. I wrote the first English language article about him. He gave me permission to translate his book into English, so I got to know him fairly well. So I went and I knocked on his door. He didn't know I was coming. And I wasn't sure. I was just going to drop in and say hello. I wasn't really going to stay. So when I knocked on his door, and he always called me San-gun. So San meaning mountain, and gun is kind of a word where the nuance is a little bit difficult to translate. The word Iyagi-gun is used for storyteller, but gun kind of means like an expert or, but a lover of something. Where a tungsanga can be a hiker, but San-gun is a higher level. So he opened the door and he said, "San-gun, what are you doing here?"
I love that name. I really love that name.
Yeah. So I said, we came down Ppoong-Ppoong-i, my friend Tim. Tim had met him before. I said, we got soaked. Can we come in and just dry off for a little bit? He's like, come in. He's like, take off your clothes and put in the dryer. So we did. He got us towels and
awesome.
and we didn't wash our clothes. We just dried them off in his dryer. Yeah. And we wore towels. We sat down. We drank soju for like 3 hours, waiting for our clothes to dry and
that's
chatting.
Such a great story.
Yeah, and then we got ready because it said we got to go and we got to get our train back up north. And he's like, okay, because it's a 5-hour train ride. And he said, okay. So we went out. The rain had slowed down, and we were going to walk down. And then a park ranger came up. Now, Mr. Ham was so revered that one of the reasons why he was so revered, not only because he established Korea's first park shelter, a mountain shelter in 1970, and because of his hand in convincing the government to create the national park system, but because he knew so much about Jirisan, things that most people didn't know, not even the park rangers that worked there. In all that heavy rainfall that Tim and I hiked down through, someone got stuck on one of the upper peaks called Ppoong-Ppoong-i. Now, Ppoong-Ppoong-i is essentially a dead end. When you go up, the only way to go is back down. There's no other trail that really goes down anywhere else. You can, but it's not really an active trail. It's quite difficult. And the slope on the other side, the really deep slope, is really steep. Goes down to Pemsagor, the great Python Valley, the giant snake valley, and someone got stuck up there in the rain. He got cut off from the trail, so he was trapped on this 1,700 meter peak. And had no way to get down, and it was too stormy to send helicopters in. Yeah. So the guy was able to get service on his phone. He called for help. Called whoever he called, search and rescue maybe. They contacted the local park shelter, the rangers, and they came up to Mr. Ham and they asked him, "Is there any other way we can get up to him to save this guy, to get him down off the peak? Because we better get him down because we don't know if there might be a landslide." And Ham Tae-shik, first of all, started laughing, called the guy an idiot. He's like, "What's he doing going up to the mountains on a day like this? What a fool. Young men. Foolish young men. That's why young men die. And because they're foolish." And so he said, "Yeah, I know another way up there." So this man was just an encyclopedia of knowledge on Jirisan. Wow. The great mountain. And he knew how to save this man from this disaster that he got himself stuck in up on this mountain. And he told the park rangers how to get up there. Park rangers had no idea about this route. They had no idea. And they had asked the man who lived in the mountains for 40 years how to save this man from this landslide up in Jirisan. So, yeah, interesting. Mr. Ham passed away in 2014. Yeah. So
to hear more about him. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, postscript to the 2011 landslide over in Umyeonsan. That's kind of how our warning system was established or beefed up, because there was one of the reasons people couldn't evacuate in time was there was not good communication between the Seoul neighborhood, the district, and the citizens, and they couldn't get away in time. So this is after that, that's when we started seeing all those mass text messages on our phones anytime it's a hot day or a cold day, or when coronavirus started, we get, how many messages have I gotten today? I think I've gotten 10 this morning so far.
I always get the one right at 10 o'clock. Wash your hands, wear your mask, be careful, be vigilant. And I just got one that there's an infection in the city, but so, very, very far from me.
I think this is why we get so many messages now, is the government's covering its butt and wants to make sure that you got the message. We can't blame us. Did you get the memo? Yeah.
And I think they work.
Yeah. I think the other downside is now we're getting so used to the messages, we don't pay attention to them anymore.
That's another problem. I think that's the downside. People just turn them off. Yeah. People just. I know people's like, oh no, I didn't see you. How's everything with coronavirus? I was like, you didn't check. You have like 50 infections in your neighborhood. You didn't see? He's like, no. I turned off. I don't get any of the warnings. I didn't know you could turn it off.
My annoyance with these is that when they turn on my phone, my phone doesn't turn. The screen doesn't turn off. So if I'm away from my phone and one of these things happens, it's burning my battery, keeping my screen on the whole time.
It's probably something in the background. I have an iPhone. You can do that.
I may have to fix that. There's something, some other hidden feature.
Mine's just a banner. I turn on the warning from the Korean system. Then I set it as a banner. I can't remember what it's called. It shows for like 30 seconds, and then the screen turns off, and it stays there in the notification center.
I'll need to fix it anyway. Yeah. So anyway. That's one of the reasons I chose this story today about the Umyeonsan, is like it affects how we're dealing with today.
And it's been awful. The last 2 weeks have been really, really bad.
Yeah.
50 people have died.
Yeah.
I think I haven't seen the news in a couple of hours, but may have changed. 11 or so people are still missing. People have washed away. Stay away. Stay away from any of this stuff. As a person who has experienced it firsthand, nature is stronger than you are. You want to talk about terrifying, humbled, and seeing giant boulders that if it had happened while I was walking my way up to the station, I would have been crushed. Yeah. The timing too. And there would have been no Dark Side of Soul podcast. That's right. So yeah, everyone better become a patron. Just in case I got to take over and do this by myself. Patreon. Oh my gosh. But before we do, it's more than just floods. Just quickly, Korea has been experiencing in the last several years an increase in earthquakes. Yes. And they've been getting stronger. There was a couple this year already. There's always like small ones all around. The big one in Gyeongju happened while my wife and daughter were visiting their mother-in-law. There you go. And so it was 2 years ago now. So 2 years ago. She was on. I remember my daughter was standing on the sofa, they said, when it was happening, and got really scared. Yeah. What they've done in Ppoong-Ppoong-i National Park, and they may be doing it elsewhere, along the old, the Ppoong-San, which is the fortress wall that was built around Ppoong-San, which is now Ppoong-San National Park, Samgaksan, and around Samgak Mountain. Triangle Mountain. Right. Or the Triple Horn, some people translate it as. Triple Horn sounds better than Triangle Mountain. Right. It's because of the three tallest peaks that are there. The fortress wall was built in the early 18th century, around 1711. And a lot of the foundations there are the original. the original foundations, the stones. But what they've done, they've added all throughout the wall in different parts of the park. They've added these small strips of glass. So they're testing shifting. So if the stones, oh, I just hit my mic. If the stones that are part of the wall move, if they shift, that glass will break. And they have other
leave
ones.
A signal. Yeah.
That'll be a signal that there's some shift there, and they have to figure out why. But if it happens to a bunch of them, then it's very likely there's tectonic movement happening there. Well, so another thing to remember too, that the mountains in Korea are quite old. That's why they're so small.
Yeah.
And they're kind of maybe due for a shift. So
we're on the edge of the Ring of Fire, and Japan usually gets all the big quakes.
Sure.
And we're buffered.
Right. The one thing to remember, the oldest mountain range in Korea was on the west coast, not on the east coast. The current range, the Taebaek and the Sobaek mountain ranges, which make up the Baekdu-daegan, along the east, all that shifted at one point. There was movement from the east across the East Sea, and the mountains that were on the west coast sank, and the mountains that are now on the east coast rose. So that's ancient geology of Korea. So along the east and the west and southwest coast of Korea, there's just thousands of islands. Those are ancient mountaintops.
Oh. So
it happened a very, very long time ago, long before there was civilization on the peninsula or anywhere. And it's been a long time. So I'm wondering if this, the movement and the increase in earthquakes in the last several years has been the earth kind of like, gotta release a bit of gas over there.
Yeah, who knows?
To start shifting stuff around. So earthquakes are growing in frequency and strength, and tornadoes. There's at least two. There are at least two that I know of. One happened in Ilsan in 2014, I think it was.
Oh, now I remember. Yes, there were small tornadoes. That? Yeah, I remember that. I remember the video of that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can link to that. It closed. It destroyed a bunch of farms around Peksak Station, Peksak area. Peksak. Yeah. Yeah. So, and there was another one.
It's like living in Korea compared to when I grew up on the U.S. Gulf Coast. Now that's some serious weather down there. We had tornadoes, hurricanes, lots of that stuff all the time.
Yeah. And there was that's Tornado Alley, right? In North America.
Yeah. Well, started with northern Alabama's Tornado Alley.
Okay.
Well, it's one of the tornado alleys. They actually,
right. I see. There's several.
I recently read an article where they say it's actually more active than the Oklahoma one everyone knows about.
Okay. I see. There was another tornado a few years after that, a couple of years ago. Yeah, it destroyed a factory in Chungcheongnam-do. I don't remember which town.
So all the stuff that I was thinking I was safe from in Korea, really bad weather, snakes.
That's right. You learned that there are venomous snakes in Korea.
Yeah.
I've seen several. Yeah. Seen a couple on my hiking tours, actually. Yeah. So, I haven't seen a venomous snake on a hiking tour. I have seen venomous snakes, but not on a hiking tour.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I see them in a zoo.
Right. So, no, Korea's prone to natural disasters, just like everyone else.
National disasters.
National natural disasters. I think there's this false sense of security in Korea where it's like, we're lucky. We don't get natural disasters. We don't get earthquakes. But it's like, it's just, I think people are comparing it. They're like, they don't get earthquakes like Japan does. So they don't get tornadoes anywhere near like the United States does. But the flooding in Korea can be serious. And we're seeing
flooding.
This year is awful.
For us, it's flooding and the pollution from China.
Well, that's man-made.
Or the locally made pollution.
Yeah, that's all man-made, though.
But we don't get the heavy snowstorms
that we get in Newfoundland.
Vortex or anything.
Right. Yeah. There was the biggest. So this is probably before we sign off, the biggest natural disaster I experienced. So I've experienced all these floods here in Korea for 20 years. These tornadoes, because I was near the tornado that hit in Ilsan that day. I did feel an earthquake that hit Ilsan in around 2007 or so. I was at home and it shook my house a little bit.
Yeah. The
worst natural disaster I experienced was back home in Newfoundland. It was December 1994. It was a Thursday, and we were told that a snowstorm was moving in, big snow front, and it hit. And it hit so heavily, and so much snow fell that power stations all across the island of Newfoundland were down, and we lost electricity for 6 days.
Oh my!
5 or 6 days.
That's a disaster.
Yeah, and it froze our pipes, so we had no running water, and we had no electricity. Now, fortunately, most people in Newfoundland, in rural Newfoundland, still use wood heat in those days anyway. So everyone had big 12-hour burners, which have grates on the top that you can lift, and you have a flat surface for cooking. So we had all of our vegetables, everything in the house, and my mom and my dad just made soups, and we had steaks, and we were able to get that burner hot enough to fry up some steaks, and we lived off soup and steak for like 6 days. And water, we just brought snow in, and we'd melt it on the wood stove. We'd boil it, so it was just to be sure it was purified. We used that to wash our hair, and we would just sponge ourselves down in the bathtub.
Yeah.
That was 6 days.
Time.
Yeah, that was 6 days of no electricity, no running water, and no school.
Yay. Oh yeah, Canada, they don't cancel school for snow. Yeah, generally.
No, we had, well, it depends on where you are. Like parts of Labrador, I'm not sure. Like it has to get to like minus 40.
No, in the south, even if there's a hint that there might be snow, they'll close all the schools.
Oh no,
but not for coronavirus.
Because snow clearing is so advanced. I think because it gets so.
Yeah, but that's what it is. Is there's in the south? There's no. Atlanta is the only city I know of that has snow clearing equipment.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing there. There's no salting, anything like that. But I've lived through some natural. I mean, I've lived through a few hurricanes.
Right.
I remember Opal was the biggest one I remember because I was a student at Auburn University and did a hurricane party and uprooted some really old trees. And a friend of mine was driving and a tree went through the back shield window of his car.
Good grief. That would be terrifying.
And I remember, hurricane parties. It's scary and exciting at the same time, and going out and seeing how things look right afterward. It's Anyway, we should wrap the show because we've been on for quite a long time. Thank you for listening this long. If you do like the show, please join us on Patreon. Become a patron as little as $5 a month. You can do that. But actually, get our comic book. You can get it on darksideofsoul.com. Go to our store.
So darksideofsoul.com/store.
Yeah, but just go to darksideofsoul.com. I got links to it. It's 50-page comic book. You can get digital or print versions. Also
written by me.
It's written.
You said you're going to start pitch me like your agent.
Written by Sean. Yeah. Here we go. If you like Sean, this is his writing. It's really good. I've been rereading it lately, and the artwork is just so crazy good.
Excellent.
It's gorgeous. Try the comic book. That's great. And sales of the comic book goes towards the next volume. That would be great. Mm-hmm. We also like to, if you become a patron, you also get some free music from the person who makes our theme song, Sorak-san. We have to thank them for that. Thank our top tier patrons, Angel Earl, Joel Bonamini, Jamie Staley, and Sharon Cullen. Jamie and Angel we saw this past weekend.
Yeah, that's right. We did.
Yes.
And we saw Sorak-san too.
Oh, we saw Sorak-san, not the mountain, but the musician. Actually, we saw a lot of him. Yeah, it was fun.
Drinking beer with him on Sunday night.
Drinking lots of beer and playing board games. Also, if you have any supernatural experiences, contact us at our facebook.com/darksideofsoul and tell us about it, so we can. If you want to experience in a book we're making, that would be great. Well, everyone,
the stipulation that the stipulation that the experience has happened in Korea. That's all.
Yeah, in Korea. Yeah, in Korea, or in its waters.
Okay,
there we go. I'll be specific on that.
Right.
Yeah, or in the air over Korea.
Right.
There we go. All right, thank you so much, guys. You've been good. Thank you so much. Tell your friends about us, please. Give us a review where you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, and such. Please. I just signed up. We might get on Amazon soon. Hey, yeah. Yeah. Until then, stay spooky.
Good night.